Now we're going. We're at the policy committee meeting. It is the very first day of school, and we have board members R.G. O'Leary and myself, Rachel Gilker, and Mr. McCree, Frank McCree. And we're also joined by Jess Tabakian. I don't know if she shows on the recording, but she's here as our scribe, and more than a scribe. So we have an agenda that includes 5 items. We're going to start with the service animal item. I'm sorry, it's 6 items, but we're going to start with this use of service animal policy and regulation, which is something we have on the books at this point. And Frank, do you want to walk us through the thoughts going on with that?
Yep, I definitely will go through it. So it's number 6 on the policy document that Jess sent out.
Yep.
So I talked to our school attorney. This is actually from our school attorney. He's used this in other school districts. Government for Laws has used this in many other places as well. So we have nothing on our books about service animals. So this goes along with ADA regulations and everything that goes along with it. And it's defined by a dog, which is individually trained to do work or perform tasks for the benefit of the individual with a disability. Such work or tasks may include. So it's all those things, and you can look at all other specified animals, whether wild or domestic or untrained, are not service animals for the purpose of this definitions. So all animals which are used for purposes of crime deterrent, therapy animals, or animals whose sole function is to provide emotional support, comfort, therapy, companionship, therapeutic benefits, or to promote emotional well-being are excluded from this definition. So this is for an individual who would have it on property, and about district personnel and other things like that. It's not about the district having a therapy dog. That would be a different thing that we would have to talk about, because you have therapy dogs that are district owned. Different from that. This is for an individual who has a service animal.
Right. So by service, you mean someone who would guide you to make sure that you're not hitting a curb or something.
That or
for minor.
So, or if someone is an epileptic and the dog can sense when they're going to have seizures, that's for a disability. So that would fit into that kind of realm.
Okay.
But we don't have any of that at the moment, but it'd be very interesting to make sure we have a policy to address these situations.
Okay. This policy does look like it makes sense. Our next board meeting is on the 14th. Would it be important to have it a first read at that point, or do we want to hold off until October 4th for the following meeting?
If you guys are comfortable with this, to going for first read, and then maybe just even a board discussion at the board meeting about it to see how people have an understanding of it. I think it's important because, there's a lot of push now with emotional support animals, and I understand the need for them, but that doesn't align with ADA and service. So, this has got to be a board discussion and conversation about where the board would like to go with that direction. So this is kind of where it's coming from. I did get a request, and then the reason that request actually started the conversation was I don't have a policy. So that's kind of where it was. I contacted our attorney, and for a service animal, and this is kind of where they're directing us to go.
So basically it's saying no emotional support animals, but yes, service animals.
Yes, that's correct. But it's also saying not only emotional animals, but it's search and rescue dogs, crime deterrent dogs. If someone has property, now not if a police officer comes in and has a dog that's different again, this is the ability to bring it into school or work each day.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, my take on it is if, we don't have a policy on this, I mean, I think given the constraints of the law, you can certainly act within the legal confines in addressing the specific request. But yes, we should put a policy in place and make sure the board agrees.
Yeah, because I want to make sure that everybody's in agreement with the policy and the direction.
Yep, it makes sense to me, and I think when we work on our service animal one that we have for the district's animal, we can which is another
Right.
policy that, yeah.
I would love to have a district provided therapy dog. You know that.
Yes.
It's
Mhm.
a goal of mine to have for
Yep.
the district.
That
Absolutely.
was something you mentioned, like in one of the first policy meetings that we sat in when you just started at the district. So I conflated these two a tiny bit in my mind. I think we can bring this to the board for discussion, and we'll consider that a first read if the board is comfortable with that for the September 14th meeting. I would just put an apostrophe. Can I do that, Jess? I can.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Work.
All right. Sorry, using Google Docs and realizing I have edit abilities. So it's going to be for first read and discussion when you do the agenda for next meeting. Please. Thank you. All right. So should we go to item number 1, policy 4000? Oh. Okay. The main change is standard number 5, where there have been changes to the language used by the state. So on the second page, it says college and career readiness, and then in mathematics, science, technology, and then getting rid of the list of 1 through 8. And I think that that's actually, we have that policy standard number 5. When I was reviewing this, that's what I recalled.
Yeah. I don't see any issues with the change.
Yeah. So this is one of those things that we absolutely have to look at because of the change. But are you guys all good with pushing these changes forward? And this would be just for the board to accept these edits. We wouldn't have a first and second read. We would just approve this.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with it.
Okay. And Frank, the number 11 that is added entirely, where the district will utilize culturally responsive instructional practices, curriculum, and assessments, that kind of aligns with the textbook selection and the progressive partners.
Yeah. So culturally responsive right now is people see it as a whole bunch of different things. You know, and the definition of culturally responsive is really, you know, we teach culturally responsive things by teaching social studies, by teaching it, you know, we teach these things already. I want to be clear as, you know, it's not CRT as it is. Like, you know, it's not that encompassing it out. It's just the idea that we're having an understanding of all cultures and making sure we understand it as per our new policy.
Okay.
I just, because there might be how are you teaching cultural responsiveness? Like, no, it's not a curriculum, you know. We're just making sure we're putting instructional practices in place by making sure we check the bias boxes, making, you know, that we have for
Right.
those.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's not separate from everything. It's woven into
Right.
the current practices.
Right. I think there's a movement out there that people think it's a separate idea or that we're doing something like drastically different. You know, we're doing all this equity and inclusivity work. So that's kind of the way it goes.
Okay. Excellent. But sorry, go ahead.
It all aligns with the work we're doing.
Okay. RG, are you comfortable with this one going forward?
Yes.
Okay. Now we're going to the 8000s. These are essentially all 3 of these, all 4 of these, I'm sorry, are essentially the same. There was a change in the requirement for annual visual inspections no longer being required. So, sorry, for 2, 3, and 4, 80 on the agenda, 81, 10, 12, and 8220. just changes that language. Are you guys all comfortable moving those to the board? I reviewed them and it was simply annual visual inspections are no longer required by state law. So they eliminated that requirement from the policy. Yep. RG, you good?
So I'm just looking at the second one.
Mhm.
Is a annual inspection the same as a building condition survey?
No, building condition survey is like the big one that we're just going over now with our
Okay.
architects. And the
Okay.
annual inspection is basically a walkthrough, a little bit
Got
different.
it. So the addition of when required by the state or commissioner of education would be distinct from any requirement dealing with the 5 years that was eliminated. Okay.
Yeah. So the building condition survey is up now for us, and so that's what we're having done. We had done over the summer, and they're still working on it. We have to do that.
Got it. Okay. Yes, I'm good.
Okay. So those three, the 8,000s, or I mean, those three up to 8505. And then let's just do 8505, which is about school meals. And it just updates the prohibition against shaming, which it just says that these are actions that are allowable, not allowable for lunch payment. And this is relatively moot for this year because of the free payment, except for the fact that I think if you buy a snack or like a bag of chips or something, that you have to have money in your account for that, correct?
Yeah, that doesn't count. You don't get that underneath free and reduced lunches anyways.
Okay. But so I think it might be good for us to revisit this for the fall of 2022, just to make sure that it aligns with whatever's happening at that point. So are you guys good with bringing this one forward as well and putting it on the 2022 agenda? Not to be ridiculous, but just to think about it, especially that school lunches are not, I mean, I think it functions perfectly.
There's one here. I'm sorry, Rachel. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I did. So I didn't mean to interrupt then, but it's unclaimed funds remaining after a certain amount of time, such as 3 months, shall be absorbed by the school meal account. Jess, do we already have the time frame in there in our original policy? I don't have the original policy in front of me.
We do have that.
Okay,
Yes.
we should
It's like $2 or something, $3.
Yeah, we should make sure that it gets transferred over to this policy so those things are equal.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember reading through that and thinking that it was a funny amount, like that they would get refunded. And I think it's $3, but don't use my brain on that.
That's all. As long as we make sure that we update that part from our policy into this one, I feel comfortable.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So
You have something or?
Yeah, I'm just a little confused about what we have versus need to do now. Do we need to do anything now? We already have a policy in place that we're not doing anything with because we're not charging for meals, right? Or do we need to address, like, if a student's, if the student buys a slushie every day, God forbid, and their meal balance goes below 0 or close to 0, are we doing anything there?
Yeah, it doesn't fall within that for meal shaming because it doesn't have the subsidy from the free use. This really is only for that, and it's required. So it's just that update that they're.
Okay, that we won't sue anybody for their unpaid meal fees.
Yeah, that's it. So, and even that our practice is not to sue anybody for $20,
Right, okay.
But it's not regarding the free meals. The extras like the slushie or the cookie or that stuff, that's different. That's not for the free meal process. And they're not allowed to charge those and get those. I mean, that's something that I know that I don't.
Okay, I'm good.
Yep.
Thanks.
okay. All right. So we've been through the 6 policies that were on the agenda for today. And I'm thinking we should save the rest for a day that's not today, like our next meeting. So
Sounds perfect.
with that in mind, 4,000, the service animal is up for first read, and the rest are up for the board, first read and discussion, and the rest are up for the board to just say, yep, we're good with those edits, and if they, assuming they are, and then we'll move forward. All right.
It works for me.
All right. Thanks. Have a great rest of your day, and hope
Thanks,
it all
Rachel.
flies smoothly. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Frank and Jess, for setting this up.
Thank
Yep.
you.
You.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.